Hey everybody, welcome to Dynamite After Dark. I'm your host, Zanman Shane Sabunia, along with my good buddy, the Honorable Jeff. And we are here talking about Dynamite After Dark this week and um, I'm sorry, we're talking about the AEW Dynamite, I should say, and their second ever Fight for the Fallen. And goddamn, Jeff, this was a good show.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I
Really
mean,
good stuff.
I
Yeah.
thought all in all, I mean, there were a couple of weak spots, but for the most part, I felt all in all they put on a hell of a show.
Yeah, the weakest spot was the opening. Actually, no, I shouldn't say that. I mean, I jokingly had called Sunny Kiss versus Cody a piss break, and I texted you and I said, "Wow, it's an interesting choice to start the show with a piss break." But actually, ended up being a pretty good match between the two of them.
Yeah, and it was this was a little bit of a weirder episode because we had two people that one we've been calling a heel for months, and then the other one who his partner has been supposedly the one on the heel turn. Both kind of go on some heel little tangents. Cody trying to show up Sunny Kiss, and then this whole thing about how he's not in his he's not in the game tonight and all this crap, and then Kenny just went off on Marco.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you, Kenny. Thank you.
So it's a little interesting turn to have two of the founding fathers tease heel turns and legit heel turns. I mean, Cody's been a heel for months, but he's still cheered by everybody.
Yes, he's still cheered by everybody, and he is still the winningest TNT champion of all time.
Ugh.
I,
Yeah, that match was good. I was very impressed with Sonny Kiss. I don't think I've ever seen him wrestle other than in a battle royal here and there.
yeah, he's had a couple of tag matches with Joey Janela, but they've been like very missable, like very easily, you know, disposable. I guess is that you see him and then you totally forgot you saw it.
Weren't they on? They were on Dark, weren't they?
No, there was one. They had one like last week or the week before on Dynamite.
It must have been last week.
Could have been. Yeah, so you're right. Because the week before they were still doing Fight for the Fall. Or no, I don't remember. They did have one recently on Dynamite.
Okay.
But yeah, it was very short and uh, very disposable, like I said. So yeah, Kenny. As far as Kenny, you're talking about. Yeah, I love that. I love the seeing that sadistic side of him. I think it's that it's a nice uh, kind of a slow build over the last few weeks to it, um, where he pours out the beer and then he gets beer poured on him. He sees his best friend getting almost killed by a top rope destroyer, and then he decides, oh, I'm just gonna take it out on Marco now because Marco's the one that tried to kill Matt.
Yeah, but he
You know?
was he was kind of taking it, or he was kind of taking it out a little bit on Marco even before that destroyer happened.
Yeah, but he was saying he tried to kill you. He tried to kill you.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, he did hit Marco with something like really hard on the outside very early on in the match, didn't he?
Well, and just their whole demeanor between the two of them with him pushing him around, acting like he was some kind of joke, and then, that's
Well, he
not.
is.
Well, he is, but that's not Kenny. That's not the Kenny that we've seen over the last few years. To see him kind of poke fun at somebody else was a little bit more of a heelish thing than I've seen out of him in a couple of years now.
Yeah, you can't blame him for being frustrated either. I mean, he tried to make a nice gesture to FTR. They totally turned around on him and poured the beer on him this time.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I mean that match was holy hell, that match was great.
Yeah,
I those two tag matches in the middle of the show were just amazing. Absolutely amazing. That the six man and then the FTR and Lucha Brothers.
absolutely. They
I
were they were really good, and I loved the finish of that match and like how Blade and Butcher were kind of making fun of them for like, well, you had to rip his mask off to win,
right.
you know.
Yeah, and to rip his mask off, that was it's I like it if this is the way they're going, where they're blurring the lines between heel and face. If they're going to take this direction, because we saw it out of Paige, we saw it out of we've been seeing it out of the rest of the members of the Elite all year long. The Bucks kind of go back and forth on what they're doing, and so it's starting to feel more like they're all real people and not face versus heel.
Yeah, the heel versus face dynamic is not something I think should be done away with totally, but
No,
I
it
do
can't
think
be.
that it's a lot it's a lot more interesting to for fans like you and I if they're just competitors competing.
If they're competitors competing and one of them plays the heel during a program or during, during a story or during a match, that's one thing. But then the next, like say Cody and Kenny square off this month or whatever, and Kenny's the heel, and then in next month he's up against Lucha, he's up against Darby Allin, he plays the face, or Pac or something. They could do that very easily.
Yeah, I mean I think that the elite, I'm not the elite, but the inner circle are really the only like true heels in the entire maybe Pac too in the entire organization. Pac's easy to forget about because he hasn't been there in like 6 months now.
Well, I don't know if all of Inner Circle is either. I think Sammy kind of walks that line where
Sammy's not a part of the inner circle right now.
well, not this, for now, but he's still Inner Circle. He's still one of those heels. He was still kind of one of those guys that kind of walked the line.
I don't think he walks the line at all. You just like him.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I mean, he's not a, you know, he's not a good guy, but he's a fan favorite. He's somebody that still gets cheered.
Yeah, because he's funny and he's charismatic, not because he does anything that is worth being cheered for.
Well, that's the way fans are nowadays. They cheer
I
for
know,
who.
but I'm just saying that he actually portrays a heel.
And I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I guess that's always been where I've been attracted to. I've always been, like grew up with Ric Flair and Macho Man, and so I was always a fan of the heels more so anyway.
Yeah, I know, and a lot of fans are drawn to that. Um, I'm not saying that I'm not. I mean, I have been definitely in the past as well, but I'm not drawn to Cody, and he's clearly a heel to me. So
I'm not drawn to Cody just because I hate the fact that he's always getting over constantly in everything, every situation, there's not been since he faced his brother, there is nothing that has been in doubt with him. Yes, I get it. He lost the match to Jericho, but they ended up
and
making
and MJF both.
but and in both of them he came out looking strong at the end of the match and he won every aspect of the feud up to that point.
Yep.
But then he got in the match and yeah, he got his shoulders pinned, but in all reality, he got his shoulders pinned after, shenanigans or after, MJF threw in a towel. He didn't lose the match. He had the match lost for him. MJF cheated to win. Even though it's literally been with Cody everything he has done since his feud with Dustin to start AEW has been him coming out on top.
Speaking
And
of the towel being thrown in, that's how it happens. They're really bringing that up way too much in AEW to me. They did it with the Cody match, the Cody against
Jericho,
Jericho. They did it with Dustin versus who was Dustin against? Where they teased
Lance
throwing in the
Archer,
towel.
Lance
Was it Lance
Archer.
Archer?
Yeah.
Yeah. And now they did it tonight where Cage got the towel thrown in for him by Taz.
Which there too, I don't get that. I mean, yeah, JR did a good job of explaining it away, but it just didn't make sense.
No,
Not when you're
and Taz could. You know what I was expecting then is the referee was down there with Ryan Cage, like calling for checking for a submission, and he was on the other side of the ring. I expected Taz to use the FTW belt and smash Moxley across the head with it.
well, and it was out of character for everything Taz and Cage have been saying for the last 3 weeks.
Yeah,
He's a destroyer. And then we didn't even really, if you weren't a fan of Cage's and knew about his injury and Impact, would you have known about his bicep before tonight?
no,
So, I mean, that's kind of another little thing that just kind of made it not make sense. It's like they decided, oh, we're going to start talking about his surgically repaired bicep so
half an
that
hour before the match started.
this ending makes sense.
Yeah, half an hour before the match started.
Right. Yeah, because it just that I mean, it was those little missteps that were kind of little things like that that were dragging me down, but ultimately I and FTR and Lucha Brothers really did not have great chemistry, even though that match turned into an amazing one. But man, the start of that match, they missed way too many moves. Way too many
Agreed.
moves.
Agreed. But
Um,
yeah, they did pick it up towards the end, and it turned out to be really good.
yeah,
But and I thought Cage versus Moxley was really good.
yeah, I did too.
I just didn't like the whole, um, you know, it's like Cage like had no like defense for his biggest weakness,
Right.
and that really makes no sense either.
Well, especially when we didn't know about his biggest weakness until a half hour before it started. You know,
Right, but he should have.
right. But I'm just saying, it's like, oh, if this was his biggest weakness, how come it hasn't come up before? How come nobody else has taken advantage of it? How come it literally was like they wrote the finish to this story and they're like, oh shit, we need to figure out a way to explain this.
Yeah.
That's just, and then that's just the way it felt to me. But I felt like every match on tonight's card was a great in-ring product. Even though it might have started out a little clunky or it was short,
Even the Nightmare Sisters match,
I felt like it did its point. It wasn't a great, like I'm not gonna watch it, but it got its point across. It did,
it did get his point
it
across.
did
That's
what
very
it
true.
needed to do. So, and it was a throwaway match. It was, kind of um, a cool down match between that six-man tag and the main event. So it made sense, and it was short and sweet, and it got everything that it needed to get in.
I just hope that doesn't mean that they're going to be forming a women's tag division, because that to me is like way too early.
It's overkill, especially when you had the world champion talking about how there's nobody to fight her because they're all injured or out for some reason.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a bad move to throw in a tag division when even your champion's saying there's not enough people. And
Yeah,
they're
she was even saying like if you think you're strong enough, come into the company and challenge me.
mhm.
You talking to like the wide audience out there.
Yeah, that was a weird little thing too. And then nice to see Vicky back.
But I enjoyed it because it was Hikaru.
Yeah,
So
I had it too. And we got Vicky back, so I'm happy about that.
yes, she is probably the most annoying person that I don't mind seeing on my screen.
Right. That, that's exactly the way it works.
Yeah, it was really cool. We were kind of saying last week like who could it be? Like, is like, are they gonna like resurrect Mula or May Young and have them be the manager? But yeah, Vicky's a great choice for Nyla.
Yeah, I do. I think that, and I think she makes a great mouthpiece because I think um, Nyla is too grr all the time. Um, she's not anything but angry. So I like having Vicky be there because that gives her a good mouthpiece.
Nyla is not. um,
Horrible on the mic.
I would I would say she's not horrible, but she's very awkward. She's very awkward. I think she just doesn't have her timing down right, and she could definitely use some seasoning in that department.
Yeah, and a mouthpiece like Vicky is the best way to do that.
Yeah, she can kind of learn the ropes from her until she's ready to stand on her own.
Right.
I don't think she's horrible in the sense that she can never be good at it. I just think that she's very awkward at it right now.
Yeah,
You know,
you can definitely
you can
tell she
you can
hasn't
because
had a lot of it.
right. I mean, you can see the pieces are there where she could be good on the mic. It's just that it seems like she gets the timing wrong and stuff, and she is very like you said she has like one speed on the microphone.
Mm.
So it's all gruff meanness, and that's it.
And that worked great in the 80s with the cartoon character heels, but it doesn't work so great now.
Right, and it would work great for like if you're just coming out there saying I'm going to kill you, and then and that's all you're doing, and then you're going in the ring. But if you're really going to be explanatory about it, then you need to have better. You need to be better and have experience at it, and I think Vicky will help her a lot in that regard.
Exactly, and I think that's needed for her. I think now she can be that. I think she can be what they were trying to do with Awesome Kong and Brandy when they first got started, where you've
Yeah,
got
it's go
the
ahead.
killer and the talker.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't think she's horrible, but I do think it's a problem when your world champion who just started learning English really well in the last 2 months is a better promo than you are.
Right. I thought that too. I, I was watching that Sheeta promo going, yeah, she's got it. She's just not she doesn't have the language down yet, so it's coming off a little bit awkward. But
Hmm.
then Nyla comes out there, and I was like, all right, she does better. She'd have cut a better promo. I
Right.
hate to say it.
That was the thing. It's I don't know. It's just something that she has to work on. That's all. Nothing that's going to be. I don't think it's anything that's going to be a weakness for the rest of her career or anything.
No, I don't either. I think she'll get there. It's just
Hmm.
it's good for her now to have somebody like Vicky to be her mouthpiece, because then while she's learning to cut those promos, she can have somebody carry that weight, and she can just work on her in-ring ability and everything.
I am still really confused about Allie. Like I really don't. I mean, there was like no transition between her being the bunny and being the girlfriend of QT Marshall and teaming with Brandy as part of the Nightmare Sisters. It's just like it has seemed like it all. I mean, maybe we missed something on Dark, but I mean, is this like a situation like Jay Lethal where like if she gets hit the wrong way, she becomes the bunny. Otherwise, she's Allie. You know.
Yeah, I mean, she was the bunny coming out there with her husband, and then just all of a sudden, one day we see her flirting with QT Marshall. And then after 3 weeks of that, then Dustin says, I don't trust her. And then a week later, they're teaming together, and yeah, they still don't trust her, but they're winning.
Right.
It just, it's, I, I don't even want to say, it's just been a choppy story. There's no explaining it. It's just like, we literally went from Bunny to her being QT's girlfriend in 1 week with no explanation.
Right. And that's why I kind of wonder like, are we supposed to just not even know she was the bunny? Because they haven't said that she's the bunny. They just they treated her as two different characters.
Another thing that when she first came into AEW, remember her first match was because of her feud with Brandy?
Yes, that's right. It was, wasn't it?
And they had that horrible feud about how they hated each other and everything. And now all of a sudden they're not best friends, but she trusts him enough to wait, what? It's another one of those. When that happened tonight and they came out together, I just screamed at my TV. It's WWE history. We're not supposed to remember that what actually happened a year ago. Like Cesaro and Sheamus being best friends after a couple of years of tagging together.
Yeah, they really should. They really should have. And really, the thing is that past history would work more towards this distrust that they're feeling towards her right now if they were to mention that.
Right, but they just blow by it like it's not even a thing, like it never
Right.
happened.
I know, but I'm saying like this is a case where we should remember that because that would help the story make sense.
Yeah, they're not going to spend time telling us the story. They're just going to throw it on us and say, okay, let's see what sticks.
I guess so. Um, yeah, but I mean, we were talking about some deficits, but I mean, overall, I really enjoyed this show, and I loved seeing Darby Allin return with that flying skateboard to Brian Cage too.
Yeah.
I mean, he needs to get revenge on Brian Cage. We need to have him back. I want him back in the ring. He was one of the hottest guys on the show, and then he just hasn't been there other than a few vignettes here and there.
Yeah, and
So
that's a lot. That's because of his injury.
I know, but
Yeah.
it happened before too with that we and I this is like kind of like life imitating art, but he had that that fake throat injury by Sammy. Then he was at the same kind of thing happened.
Actually, you're right. We did say that. It was weird because they would have these hot guys that are just absolutely on fire, and they would disappear for 2, 3 weeks.
Right.
No explanation, no vignettes or nothing. And then they started doing the vignettes, which made it a lot better. But yeah, you're right. He does have a habit of doing that.
Yeah, he does, and so I'm just hoping they don't keep that as a thing. Like you said, this time I don't think it was avoidable because he really was injured. But the previous time was a storyline injury.
Right. Yeah, and like I said, I've said it now a million times. Yes, there were a couple of downbeats, but ultimately, I felt like this whole show was great. I felt like every match on the card, 4 out of the 5 were really good. One a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Three really good matches, and one that was good enough to get its story across and tell everything it needed to tell.
Yep. Absolutely correct.
So I mean, this was definitely if you haven't watched it, find it somewhere because this was definitely one of those shows that is a must watch from start to
Well,
finish. To
it'll be on the TNT app in like 24 hours or something. So
oh yeah,
you can always watch it tomorrow on TNT.
I DVR it in case I ever want to go back and watch it.
Yeah, you just won't get the you just won't necessarily get the hashtag that you could win one of those prize packages.
Well, and you'll miss quite a bit out of both those matches they went to commercial break in. I mean, um, especially, I mean, Cage kind of took over during that commercial break and really inflicted a lot of damage on Moxley, which is another reason why it made the towel bit make no sense.
Yeah.
So, I mean, watching it live is probably the better way to go because then, something might actually happen during those commercial breaks. And now that they're doing it during actual matches and not doing it during backstage promos, it's there's an actual chance you might miss something.
Yes. Very true.
I don't know. Like I said, I thought this was a great show. It almost feels like their in-ring ability and some of the storylines that they were teasing are better than they were a month ago when we were down on it. Like the go home show before Fighter Fest, all the Fighter Fest, and then tonight. So this last month has been solid shows.
Yeah. And it was nice to see Orange Cassidy learning from Sammy Callahan on tonight's show too.
Oh, the thumbs up, thumbs down.
Thumbs up, thumbs down.
It wasn't even a real thumbs up. That was like quarter thumb up. But he got the full thumb down, so that worked
And
out
that
well.
yes, and that juice falling on Jericho was really really funny.
Oh,
So
Ortiz flopping around was one of the greatest things I've seen.
yeah,
And then Jericho basically told him, "Knock it off, dude. You've gone too far with this bit." By telling him, "Get up, dummy."
Ortiz continues to be one of the MVPs of AEW.
Oh yeah, he's hysterical. And what was he drinking? It looked like he might have had the vodka when they had the juice,
I think so.
because
Yeah,
he was drinking out of that flask around his neck.
that was really odd to see Hager and Jericho both holding half gallons of orange juice.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense. It would have made more. I think that would have been a better thing for maybe it to be sitting ringside and someone hand it to him on request instead of carrying half gallons of orange juice. And JR got in some good digs on Excalibur again this week. Not like personal digs like last time, but he actually got in a couple of decent ones where Excalibur said something about he called it as a gallon, I mean half gallon of orange juice, and JR's like, "You don't do the shopping in your home, do you?" I thought that was pretty funny.
Oh, I totally missed that. So, I guess JR will JR.
Yes,
I
that's true.
yeah, I really, it's I really don't know how he feels about Excalibur because on his show he talks about how, he's a great announcer. He's happy to, to like coach him up and stuff. But on the show he kind of treats him like he's garbage sometimes.
Yeah, he
And I really don't. And like last week, it really didn't feel like he was joking about it. So I really don't know, if there's real heat between them or, he just doesn't like, Excalibur's style or what it is. But
or it's a bit.
it could be, but I
Yeah.
mean, last week, but like I said, last week it certainly didn't seem like a bit.
I
So
remember before he and King got along, they had a lot of the same type of stuff.
yeah, but it was always the King that was doing that kind of ribbing too. It wasn't Jr.
Yeah, that's true. That's
I kind
true.
of think I kind of think Jr. is just an asshole personally.
Oh
But
yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that. Um, but yeah, yeah, there. Who knows? I guess we'll find out someday. Someday
maybe
when one of them does a tell-all book.
like under the Black Hat Part 3.
Oh God, no.
I think I think it's beyond. I listened to a couple of the Grill and Jr. from like 2 weeks ago, from like the Fourth of July edition of it or whatever. They were talking about Bret Hart, but which is why I listened to it. They're talking about Bret Hart in 1996, and I thought, and I like. kind of rolled my eyes when JR mentioned that they're in the early stages of talks to make his book Under the Black Hat into a feature film or a TV property of some kind.
Ugh.
And I'm like, really? Who the hell would want to pay money to see that? So
Well, probably the same people that paid money to read it.
yeah, I mean, and I might read it at some point, but I mean, I just can't imagine watching
We'll get
like
up and get it.
JR's life story on a movie. It just
Yeah, I mean,
is.
if it's a behind the scenes wrestling type movie, then I wouldn't mind watching it. But to see his life, no, I'm there with you.
No, and yeah,
Because
I get, and maybe there, maybe it's just because you and I have been so close to it over the years. We kind of like followed his career. In a, I mean, not necessarily like intently, like we were a fan of his, but we followed so closely the stuff that he was announcing that we know what most of his career was.
well, and not just that. I mean, we followed him in WCW, or I did anyway, and saw his little meltdown before he went to WWF. And then he had his on again, off again run on WWF, and then became the lead announcer. And we kind of saw from there where he was just the voice of the best time of wrestling. Him and Shivani, which is probably another reason why I still have a real soft spot for Shivani too, is because that was just the best time ever in wrestling, and they were the two voices.
Do you think his biggest meltdown was at Bash at the Beach 1992 when, uh, or was it Beach Blast 92 when he and Jesse Ventura were arguing about whether it was a um, camera cable or a camera cord that Rick Rude was choking Ricky Steamboat with?
Yeah, that might be his biggest one. He did have some. He did
I,
have
I mean,
some
I mean, his
pretty.
biggest one before he left the company is what I was talking about. But I mean, he and Jr. he and Jesse Ventura just could not get along on
No, they
comedy.
couldn't, and it was horrible listening to him,
Yeah.
listening to them two together. And unfortunately, I think the reason why I think Bobby Heenan is my favorite color guy of all time ahead of Ventura is because of his run in WCW when him and JR just didn't get along at all, and you could hear it. You could hear that they legitimately did not like each other when they were talking.
Yeah, I mean, and the other big thing I can remember just kind of off the top of my head is when I think it was at Super Bowl II where JR called said something about Ricky Steamboat being a great athlete, and Jesse's like, athlete? He's not an athlete, he's a wrestler. And they argue back and forth over that for like 2 minutes. It's like, guys, call the match.
Yeah, they did. They did get into a lot of that, didn't they? But
Yeah.
and
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the bottom line is I kind of feel the same way about this relationship with this Excalibur right now, where you can kind of tell, and I don't think Excalibur is guilty of it. I think it's just like it's more one-sided. Like I think Jim Ross is just like really hard on Excalibur for basically no reason.
well, I wonder if some of it might be because Excalibur really made a name as an announcer. And he's doing the play-by-play side, not so much the color, he's actually better than JR what it was at the beginning of AEW.
I think so. I mean, I feel like Excalibur is better than JR was or is. I mean, I still feel like and I don't think anybody right now is as good as Kevin Kelly. So
No, I agree. I don't think anybody anywhere is as good as Kevin Kelly is right now.
no.
Ian Riccaboni, maybe it's the fact we haven't heard him in so long, but
No,
Ian,
and no, even at that time, I mean, Riccaboni is my second favorite, but it's still a wide margin between the two of them for me.
yeah, Kevin Kelly, ever since he went to Japan, has just been nails. The guy can't do anything wrong right now.
No, and I told the story on our ROH shows that I when he started with Ring of Honor, it was at like Final Battle 2008, I think it was 2009, no, 2009, and they were like having like saying like we have a big name that's going to be the announcer for us, and it was Kevin Kelly, and I was like, well, that's kind of a popcorn fart, and he's become my favorite announcer. He
Yeah,
goes, he was because he was kind of like he was used as a joke for the most part in WWF, so I didn't realize how good he actually is or could be
yeah,
if given the chance.
wasn't he just basically The Rock's bitch?
Yeah, that's how I felt. Yeah.
Back, I don't, did he ever actually make it onto the announce team, or was he just always a backstage guy?
I think he might have been on the Aussie like Shotgun Saturday Night or something like that,
Okay.
but not on any of the big shows.
But I mean, in the early 2000s, he was just The Rock's bitch.
Yeah.
He was there to be The Rock's straight guy or whatever, or
Yep. Exactly.
comic relief or whatever. So yeah, I get where you're coming from, but man, you're right. He might be the best out there. Oh, and I Googled uh, um, Evil's new music.
Badass man.
My God, I thought his music before was great. His Bullet Club theme is amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
S-
Yes, it is.
So now I can legitimately say that he has my favorite entrance music in wrestling today.
Yeah. The entire presentation of Evil on Dominion sold me that he is a long-term main event player for the company. So
I haven't seen the
um,
match yet, so I
I know
don't.
you haven't. I
Um,
know you haven't, but I mean, even just him coming to the ring, I was like, oh my god, this is a major paradigm shift.
well,
So,
considering your hatred for him last night,
well, it's not my hatred for him. I just have always felt like he was more like a gatekeeper type. He was never going to be a big star. But I mean, a lot of times presentation changes everything.
well,
You
I
know.
I felt like his run during the New Japan Cup positioned him really well.
Hmm.
And if his entrance and presentation during this match is equally as good or better, nah, I guess it would have to be better, but I could guess maybe I could see where you're coming from
Yeah.
if that ends up being the case.
Yeah. I thought everything in the last hour of Dominion was very very surreal. So
Wow. All right.
yeah.
Well, I'm gonna start watching it tonight. So,
Yeah, it was, and Dominion was a good show. It wasn't what we come to expect from Dominion. It couldn't be because of circumstance, but it was still a really good show.
well, it's always been my favorite New Japan show.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, even over Wrestle Kingdom. I've always felt like Wrestle Kingdom once it started doing their 5 hour shows, they started to get a little too much for me. Um, where, Dominion still stuck around 3.5 to 4, or, 3.5 hours.
Yep. I see where you're coming from with that. I do think it's going to be very hard to ever top Wrestle Kingdom from this year, though.
Yeah, the 2 nights and the dash for the gold and all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that Osprey Takahashi match. Oh, jeez. What a great show. If I had 8 hours, I'd go back and watch it again. I just don't have the 8 hours.
Well, maybe we can find it at some point.
Yeah, when the next shutdown comes.
Yeah. So we also get straight from talking about Dynamite, but that's okay. That's how we do things.
Oh, we always
So
do. So, I mean, but
all right.
great show. Go watch it. Loved it. Guys, hit up our Patreon, patreon.com/Kingdom of Honor. You can go there, get all of our archives and some exclusive stuff. Just reviewed Ring of Honor, the 10th anniversary show from 2012 that was put up last night. Or Monday night, actually. And then, of course, if you're on our YouTube channel, we appreciate it. Go ahead, hit the like button, subscribe button, ring the notification bell. Whether you're on our channel or you're on youtube.com/LOP Calvin. Whichever one you're on, head over to the other one after the show and hit the like button, subscribe button, notification bell on that one as well. And then, of course, our Twitter. I'm at Regi Co-op. He's at ZanmanLOP. Best way to reach us is using the hashtag DAD and the hashtag KOH.
And make sure you stay tuned tomorrow night for MCLP Radio Adventure for WWF The Legacy Series this weekend, and then we'll be back with you for Kingdom of Honor talking about Dominion next Tuesday, and then we'll be back, I think, with another episode of Dynamite After Dark, right, Jeff?
I I'm okay with it right now because it's been such a good show.
All right,
So
that's all we've got. We'll try to do better next time. This is Shane saying long days, pleasant nights, and Jeff saying
goodbye.